You're listening to the Golden Nugget podcast, a podcast designed to feel like you're sitting down for an hour a week chatting with a few of your best friends and learning how to grow and lean into all that God has called you to be. We love you so much. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on our Instagram at the Golden Nugget Pod. Let's jump in. Hello and welcome Welcome back to
Being
your...
in person for this is crazy.
I know, I love this. Welcome back to your favorite podcast, the Golden Nugget Podcast. I'm your host and your best friend, Anna Golden, joined by... Have you never heard my intro?
I have. I just don't know why being here for it is very funny.
Yeah, you're on. And I normally say... I'm introducing you to another one of my best friends, which is Bede. Bede?
Hi.
Bede Benjamin-Korporaal. Did I say that right?
Corporal.
Corporal. Yeah. Sorry.
It's fine.
I've only ever called Bede like Cher. You have one name to me.
I love that.
I found out the other day, Bede is from... Do you want to give a little window version of yourself or elevator pitch?
Window version is interesting. I'm from Australia.
Like yeah. Where in Australia?
From Sydney. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of the best places on the planet.
So you miss magical.
It? Yeah, I miss like the
Bondi
things
Beach?
about it. Yeah, it's pretty good. Thank you for saying Bondi like a real person.
What is it supposed to say?
Well, no, that's how you say it. People say Bondi.
Ooh,
and
gross.
It's crushing. Yeah, from Australia, Sydney. And I've been here in Nashville for like 7 years.
And you still have your accent pretty intact.
I hope so. I'm trying not to lose it. Have I told you the story about my grandma?
No, please.
Okay. My grandma was 101 when she passed away. This is
what a
year
life
ago.
lived.
Great life. The last words she said to me, no lie, were, Bede, you're losing your accent. No, sorry. Bede, you sound so American. Crushing. And as an Australian woman who was born in the 20s, like the 1920s, that is a big dig.
Whoa.
It was crushing. She's like talking to the girls, like so happy to see like them. And then right as she's saying bye, she's like, oh, Pete, you sound so American. She dies that night.
And you're just like sitting.
Just left with that.
Like, wow, okay, so I'm an American now.
Yeah, but I don't think I do. I hope not.
I don't think you sound at all. Sometimes I feel like I hear your kids sound a little Australian too.
Oh, I'll take that.
Yeah, like Ada has like her little ways.
Every now and then. Makes me happy.
Wow, I love that. I feel like Bede, there's so much to dive in about you, but I will say that Bede is it's an original name.
Oh, yes.
Where did that come from?
It's an old English name, but my parents are pretty amazing and they're pretty wild too. Like they went to India on their honeymoon and they stayed, which is an odd thing, even for Australians.
I mean, I'm into it.
And they stayed at a Christian ashram, which anyway, the guy running that, it was his 80th birthday. And he was this old English guy while they were on their honeymoon. And so on their honeymoon, they served, this guy ran this thing and it like served the whole community food every day.
Yeah.
And then once a week, it was like this massive meal. And this was his birthday party. And they served food to like thousands of people. It was one of the sweetest things, but his name was Bede.
Wow, they were so moved by this Bede.
But they actually forgot about this guy until a few days before.
Did they know it was B-E-D-E?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's how, I guess in like old English, they would, because it means prayer, but they would differentiate prayer beads with that spelling as opposed to other beads.
Bede. Wow.
It means prayer or saint of scholars, which that's...
So in my mind, I was like, Australia's dripping with beads.
Dripping with beads.
Like, it's a big name over there. And the other night I was at dinner with some of our friends who are all from Australia, and they were like, "No, this isn't." I was like, "So how many beads do you know back home?" They're like, "We've only ever met one bead. It's the same bead."
I've met 2 other beads.
What?
Yeah, but it's like,
like
if
online?
you hear that, no, in real life.
Where?
In Australia. Just like, but it was, there's a professional surfer whose name's Bede Durbridge. He's from Australia.
Okay.
And so, but I've not met him, so I know of him. But there's 2 that I've met in person. One, I worked at a cafe and he just walks in and he gets to the thing and says, oh, like to order his coffee and says, Bede. And everyone in the store who knows me just goes, what? It was magical.
Wow, what a moment. Did you guys connect?
He was in no way like excited. I'm like,
yeah.
do you know lots of beads? Like, am I missing out on this
I
little
come from
community?
an island of beads. Okay.
Yeah, so no.
No, during my album recording, Bede produced my last album, Church. And during the live recording, my sister was like helping work, and our friend Kara was also there. And Liz was so enamored with Bede's name that her and Kara kept calling each other Bede. And then by the end of the recording, there's 3 beads. And then she kept singing, "These 3 beads of Worry and I," whatever that song goes. And I thought it was so funny. Or from bead to shining bead.
Bead to shining bead was my favorite.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, well, now that we really got your name, everybody should know your name by the end of this. I'm pretty convinced you're the only person with Bede Benjamin-Korporaal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's Benjamin-Korporaal. There's only 2, like me and my sister, in the world. Mm-hmm. And there's not many corporals either, just because of the way the family line happened.
Whoa, okay, yeah. Wow. You're so original and one of a kind. I bet there's 1,000 Anna Goldens out there.
There might be a few.
Yeah, like it's just really run of the mill. It's pretty classic.
But it's pretty awesome.
Thanks for saying that. Everybody thinks I have a stage name. I do not. That's like my God-given name. Well, my birth name.
Parent-given name.
Yeah, parent-given name. Through God. Through the hand of God. Anyway, so Bede is pretty much producer, songwriter. Ever heard of it? Songwriter extraordinaire. What would you, if you were introducing yourself to someone and they're like, what do you do? What do you say?
Honestly,
besides like you're like worshiper, man of God, father and husband.
Instagram bio.
Besides being a worshiper.
If that ever happens, if you ever open my Instagram and you see that, you just call me and see if I'm okay.
Sure. You've lost it.
You've lost me. I just say like I make music most of the time. I'll say like I write and produce music.
Yeah, okay. Like You're just in the mix.
Yeah.
But also within the last year started, would you call it a record label?
Oh yeah, I guess I call it a record company just because I don't like the word label.
Yeah, because bad connotation. Every artist just flinched.
Yeah. They're like, oh,
label.
Not him too.
It's like, yeah, now we're going to start owning some stuff too, called R Records. And we'll get into that too, if you want to talk about it.
We can.
It's so cool. Yeah. I was at a dinner last night, just kind of diving into it because I was just at a dinner with a bunch of creatives, and some have had record deals before, and then just like others like actors and directors and all these things. And it's like, it's so fun sitting down with people who do what you do and who also like fight the same fight that you're in, of like, we want every person who gets to have their hand on the art to own what they're putting into, because it's yours. It's like, it's literally the difference between someone who makes music and someone who's an artist, to me, is like artists have to create to live. Like, it's like the way that you breathe. It's like such an artist thing to say. It's like so mystical.
It's so
all like the right brain people are like, boring. Talk about a spreadsheet. Give us the analytics. And those people are so necessary. But I'm like, when it comes to the artistry side of things, that's like your baby, and then someone else is owning it. And a lot of times, we'll dive into that a little later. Anyway, me and Bede are here in Nashville, Franklin, Tennessee. Shout out to Franklin. When I lived here when I was 18, this was like, wah, wah, wah. And now, if I would have bought real estate then, I would have been the Monopoly man.
If only. Monopoly man.
I would have been Daddy Warbucks. Yeah, I'd be the banker on Deal or No Deal. Shout out to Deal or No Deal Island, my current favorite show. Anyway.
I need to watch it.
No, it's actually shocking, Bede. I fear this is the second time I've talked about it, but it is Deal or No Deal meets Survivor. And
it's honestly a great combo.
You would never imagine that you'd ever want to watch that, but it's riveting. And also it's like good, clean TV. You know what I mean? Like, you could watch it with your kids.
Is the sweetest. Okay, I like that.
Yeah. I mean, there is like backstabbing and lying.
Okay, maybe I won't watch it with my kids. Hey kids, here's some role models. Auntie Anna told you to watch this.
I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, there are game players. Like, it still is Survivor, where you're like trying to like,
gotcha.
You know what I mean? You get it. It's not your classic Deal or No D. But okay, all that to say, oh my God, completely on a tangent here. But in Franklin, Tennessee, Bede is currently producing. Let's take it back first. We started working together our very first time we had a writing session. We got set up by our label. We were both signed to the same label at the same time. And it was like, go into a write. And if you're like, what are you talking about? In the world of music, you go into co-writing sessions, which is like where multiple people will go in a room and will literally just write a song. That's like the whole objective. But most of the time, I would say fairly often, you're like 3 people, sometimes 4 people. Yeah. Some people will go like 5, 6 people. No. If you're in like the pop world, there's 45 people in the room and they're all getting percentage. But so we got set up on like a one-on-one, right? Which isn't like normal if you don't know the person. Like if you start to build a rapport, it's like, oh, this is a person I love to write with. And it's like, yeah, you'll do a bunch of writes. But our label was like, all right, what did they tell you again? We don't know if she can write.
Somebody was just like, yeah, we're not sure if she can write.
Sure.
But I think you guys will do well.
Fair.
And I was like, okay.
You're like, man, what a terrible day this is.
Well, also, it's like a good, probably a 80-20 chance that it's going to be a bad day.
Sure. Totally.
But it was great.
It was great. We had a ball.
Yeah, we did.
And we wrote a song that we love so much that we still listen to this day. It's never been released. Maybe I'll...
Who knows? It might happen.
Maybe I'll plug a little clip in right here because it's royalty free as of now. Do you know what I mean? Enoch will always be like, you have something that I can like put in a video that's like royalty free. I'm like, it is right now, but if it's ever released, you're cooked. It'll get pulled.
Oh, that's interesting.
Do you know what I mean?
I honestly don't know how the video stuff works. So
yeah,
in my mind, everything's royalty free because if you wrote it, it should be.
You'd think, but there's a buried ISRC code in there.
Oh.
Yeah, now we're talking shop. People online are like, boring.
That's what that ISRC means.
An ISRC code.
Wow. How do they bury it in there? What does that mean?
I don't know.
Like, is it backwards or something?
What you said? Enoch's like on the side being like, oh, you have all the information. It literally,
I wonder how that happens.
It gets flagged so fast, and that's licensing.
That's creepy.
Yeah. Oh no, it was the live podcast that we did for the Golden Nugget in Alabama. I played Manasseh at the end. I played it live. It got pulled.
I wonder.
He only left the first chord.
Wow.
An E chord? Come on. And I'm like, with me, that could have been anybody.
It's true. But it's probably you playing it on a Nord.
Mm-hmm.
Same piano.
Same hum. Same thing. It's like, there it is. No, I was shocked that the live version got pulled.
Yeah, wow.
I just sound exactly like the track. Yeah, it's like, it was literally to no click.
That's exactly.
That's actually so funny because it shouldn't be because it was a live rendition. Anyway, all that to say, then me and Bede became great friends, loved writing together. Let's go through some of the songs we've written together. We wrote At the Altar.
Oh, yes.
Which is a fan favorite. I hate saying something like that. It's one of my favorite songs. Yeah. Because of You with Aiden King, our shared mutual friend. What a pal. He's here somewhere. He wants to come by the studio.
Oh, there you go.
We'll see. Love him. Wouldn't it be a blast having Aiden on something like this?
It could be.
It could be.
It would be.
He'd love it. Anyway, so what are all the songs from my last album that we wrote together? At the Altar. Oh, the first song, Only You. Only You. What is the other fast song?
Oh.
Glory to Glory.
Glory to Glory.
Yes.
So good.
This feels like a game.
We should probably know this quicker.
I know. I'm trying to think of the track list. From there.
Is that it?
Maybe. I feel like there was more. Wasn't there one with Jesse?
Yeah. Give Thanks.
Give Thanks. Oh, what a sweet song.
Such a sweet song.
A song that I almost cut from the album.
On the Night.
Bede has seen. So it was before my last record, and then call Bede, like, Bede, would you want to produce this album? And we'll just have a blast. And he said yes.
And it's live in like 6 weeks or something.
Yeah. It was like a very tight turnaround. I'm like, Bede, would you like to produce this album in 15 minutes? And he was like, we just had such a blast. And also it was the most stressful time of my life. And it was like for both of us. It was like everything that could go wrong did go wrong, but everything that was so great was so great.
That's true.
Would that be you? What's that book that starts off in the first line is like, it was the worst of times and it was the best of times.
Tale of Two Cities.
Yeah.
It's so true. Like the best things were amazing and the worst things were so bad.
Sorrow.
They're just warfare.
No, I'm not a big warfare person. I think we give the enemy so much credit for things. It's like, all right, you were late today. That wasn't warfare. But that one was for sure like something's pushing back.
Sounds a little on.
Something's pushing back against us. Anyway, so then wrote all these songs, did the record, had a blast. I called Bede through that process. I called Bede my co-CEO because I had Bede involved in everything. Because at that point, there's nothing better than having like a partner.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And something that you can like bounce someone off of, especially like in our industry. There's like a lot of people who see something that's like great or like want to get on like the come up of it, and they have like really weird intentions. Unfortunately, that can happen. I like to believe that that's not the case, but it was like just loved working with Bede. You were so bought in even before you were a producer. Like all those weeks that we wrote, like leading up to it, and it was just everyone was just so excited to be a part of it, and it just feels like working with your best friends is like the cheat code to life.
100%.
You know what I mean? And like doing something you love. I'm fully under the impression of like life is way too short to be pouring everything you are into something that you don't believe in. Does that make sense?
100%.
And I'm like, before everybody goes out and quits their job, it's like, you know what? You're right.
Just took one sentence from you and they're like, okay, I'm done.
They're like, you know what?
Great.
That's the last evidence I needed. I'm calling my manager right now. I think you have to work, obviously, but it's like fight for the life, like really hustle for the life that you can enjoy and like work with your friends, find people that you trust. And that was just something so fun during the recording of this last project because it felt so safe because what we do is so sacred and holy and it's serious, but it's not heavy because we aren't meant to carry glory. And we aren't meant to carry the weight of what the Lord puts in front of us. That's why his yoke is easy. His burden is light. It's him like shouldering the weight with us. Do you know what I mean? So being around people who also understand that. So like also can have a blast. Yeah. Because even worst of times, the best of times, we're always laughing, always having a great time. Bede was such a grounding force. You guys, the amount of songs on my last album that I would have just cut.
Oh, it's actually ridiculous.
I literally would have just like, no, we haven't gone over this one enough. It's cut. I almost cut Give Thanks like 14 times for sure.
Which is just...
On the night. I'm like, this is so... I said this story the other day, and it's just so real. I saw one person leave my live recording. I was like, it's it. It's a wrap. We're all going home.
Like 4 songs to go.
He's going home. He's decided this isn't worth his time anymore. Don't know his story at all.
Guy's probably got a babysitter and just has to get home.
And I'm like, well, I've had everybody here. I've held them hostage for too long. So we're just going to wrap up. And I was like, someone call Fort Todd. We're going to do this song. And I just beads in the back like.
I really want to find the audience microphones of me saying, this is not happening. You're not doing this.
Todd left the room.
Yes,
so it was literally the Lord that song is on this album because he literally was out of the room. We couldn't even record it. But he just like keep going. And then on that night, I get to the end. And for some reason, I start doing thank yous because it's like I have a mic on stage. Oh, Bede, I'm going to say it.
You're like, I've kept people long enough. So I may as well keep them even longer.
I've kept people long enough. Now it's my party. It was like, I have this mic on this stage. I'm going to start thanking every person in the crowd. Mind you, Enoch and I were just friends. He was there in the room. I thanked him. I'm like, thank you.
I don't even remember that.
I literally.
Enoch gets the thank you.
Enoch got a thank you.
Wow.
I thanked people.
I mean, that was prophetic.
Who drove from Fort Worth. Mike, thank you. I literally am thanking every person that I see like in my peripheral. I don't think Bede.
Special.
The only person, and Aiden's like, oh my gosh.
Our mutual friend is whispering into my ear, she forgot you.
I literally was like,
he kept saying,
You're next. You're
next. No.
I didn't even know. I came off stage. My brother, who's like manic, runs over to me. He's like, oh my God, you didn't thank Bede? And I thought I was going to throw up, literally. Because if there was one person to thank, it would have been you, Bede. So here publicly, I want to say thank you, Bede, for all that you did, all your work.
Every time anything we do in public is going to happen. This is going to happen now.
Forever. If I accept an award that you're not even a part of, I'm like, and I'd also like to thank Bede. Oh, it's so good. But all that to say, here we are now, 2025, 5 years out from COVID, which is crazy if you think about it.
That is so wild.
COVID is like my anchor. in time
Jesus
and space.
and COVID.
Enoch, I just know you're over there just rolling your eyes because he says, I find a way to bring up COVID.
I literally feel like I haven't talked about COVID in like a year and a half. So
it ruminates in all my conversations still.
So funny.
But now we're here at the end of creating that album, okay? Mm-hmm. I'm like, I have this moment with the Lord. It was just a tough... I had a whole podcast about creating that record, and I think I maybe alluded to some of it. I am very much so... I'm not like someone who harps on dreariness. I don't know how to say that, but I would say that like I like the honesty of the reality of what it's like to make certain things, because I think sometimes when you like make everything feel pretty and has like a bow on it, you don't really get to know the reality of it. After I made that album, I wanted to call my friends who did records and was like, why didn't you tell me doing a live record was this difficult? In the best and the worst of ways. But at the end of that, I was just like having this moment with the Lord, just praying and being like, God, I don't know if this is something I'll ever want to do again. I was talking to someone about this the other day, and they're like, yeah, it's kind of like when you have a baby. I haven't had a child yet, but they're like, yeah, once you have a baby, you're like, I'm never going to have another baby. And then they're like, you kind of get over it. And then you're like, oh, I want another one. And I was like, maybe I'll feel that way again about a live record soon enough. Yeah.
On pain.
Literally. But I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't know if I ever want to do a live record again. Like, Lord, I feel like I'm always working on something in the sense of I love creating, and I always feel like the Lord is speaking so much. So channeling that into music and all these things. So I'm like, I don't know where you want me to go next from here. And he was like, I felt just like the hand of God so clearly just like come over me. And he's like, oh, you don't need to worry about this next album. It's going to be just us. Like, it's not going to be this huge undertaking of like, oh, we have so much team and there's so many things involved and there's so many moving parts. He's like, no, it's going to be just us. And that just resonated so much in my spirit, because that's really, since I was a little kid, like the safest place that I had was like my communion with the Lord, sitting down at my parents' piano that was like my grandmother's piano in our house and just playing songs and singing to the Lord. And that was like air, like life to me, like dealing with breakups since I was a kid, or like friendship pain or family drama or everything. It was just always this constant string of communion with the Lord and just like taking these things to him. And so when he said that, I was like, oh man, that just feels like everything I've ever loved in an album. Like, it's just us. Like it feels like this. There's a song. So all that to say, we started working on an album called Just Us.
Yep.
And there's a song that we actually wrote last week. What did we title that song?
Which one are we talking for Monday?
With Amanda.
Whole time.
So it was like, the whole thing is like, you were here the whole time. And there's this moment in the song where we just like, we put voice memos of friends in there and audio from videos. And like, it's just this whole like whirlwind of sounds. It doesn't sound crazy. Be orchestrated in a beautiful way.
Sounds
People
so
are
chaotic.
like, that sounds like
stressful.
Stress. I'm like, we put fights. We put... Just kidding. Just like the craziest sounds. There's like sirens going on.
It just sounds like New York City. It's going to be fantastic.
It's like we did a quick clip of Gotham City for one moment. No, there's just all these like sweet moments, and it's like buried in the track. And to me, it gives this picture. When I think I was 17. I was at this conference, at this worship conference, and I wouldn't say it's like a vision from the Lord. I don't think I've ever gotten like a full vision. I ask for it constantly. Don't get me wrong. Am I the only person? I literally will be like, God, you can just walk in this room right now. Like, I'd love to see you.
So good.
I love it. I'll ask for that till the day I'm dead. You know, you have not because you ask not. That's biblical. But I was like 17, and I felt like the Lord, I closed my eyes, and there was this moment where I felt like really alone at that time. And the Lord just brought me to this like slideshow of us, of like those moments where I thought like I was alone sitting on the piano, and he's like sitting next to me and all these things. And I was like, the most real, like tangible, like this wasn't a vision, but it was like in my head. I don't know how to describe
Vision,
it.
but not a vision.
Vision, but not a vision. And because I feel like sometimes, like, and then I had this vision. It can get a little mystical. I'm not trying to get mystical here, but I do feel like the Lord gave me these like memories, and I was like, oh man, all those moments that I look back and I thought I was alone, like you were sitting right there with me. And in that moment in the music, I'm like seeing all those things that I saw of like times where I thought I was alone, like weeping before the Lord, and he's right there in the room, or like times that I'm like sitting down at the piano, like messing things up, and I'm like laughing my head off because I'm like trying to do something that I can too, and he's like there with me laughing, you know what I mean? And it's like that to me encapsulates so much of what this album feels like, of just communion with the Lord and honest conversation. And so we've been writing and putting it together right now.
Yeah.
And it's been a blast.
It's so fun. I thought about this the other day. Isn't it like the first song that we wrote, whenever that was, is so telling of like essentially your little footprints in the sand thing.
Yeah.
It's literally called History of Us.
Oh my
and it's
gosh,
just the
yeah.
sweetest little, like, I had not thought about it until like properly until you saying that then. I'm like, oh.
No,
it's
literally.
So sweet. Yeah.
This the first song we ever wrote together. Song called History of Us. And it's so sweet because
You'll probably never hear it though.
Too soon to tell. There's a part of me that like in another life, I'll just in another year, give me a year, I'm just gonna start releasing SoundCloud links of demos, because I'm like, some songs you're like, please, but I don't know, there's so many songs. Even yesterday we sat down and started on the track list for this album, and it was like, there's so many songs that I still, if it were up to me, every album I would release have like 15,000 tracks.
It's not true though, because they have to be 11.
Has to be 11. And it's like, why 11? It's just my favorite number. There's 11 tracks on Church.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was exactly an hour and 1 minute, right?
Yes.
I think that was
Everything was 11.
It's creepy.
It's like, do we have to do that again? No, the songs aren't going to be as long because there's not like live moments.
If we do that,
just one track, and I have to have like something of me talking that just makes everybody just
the end
live
of the album
in.
is just exactly the right amount of silence to get us to.
People are like, why does that last track? That's like a Coldplay song. That like hidden track song.
Yeah, silence.
What a phenomenal song. Now we're getting ideas. You
were just a part of the inception of that.
So I love this platform that I get to talk on, because it truly is people who are so involved in everything that I'm doing, if that makes sense. And so I feel like every time we get to talk about something, it's like a sneak peek. Like the other day I posted on Instagram and I was like, yeah, we're here working on my new record. People are like, oh my gosh, your new record. I'm like, none of y'all listen to my podcast, huh? Because last week we're going to be in Nashville. We're going to do a new album. Anyway, so I give all the spoilers. Bede, what would you say like has been something that you've loved about working on this project, or even from the beginning of when you heard about it? And then what's your favorite track right now?
Oh my gosh.
Just to get people revved.
That's hard. Well, I think my favorite thing about this is it's kind of lived for the idea of this.
For sure.
And I might be wrong in the timeline, but I'm convinced before we even like finally delivered Church, this had started.
No, yeah, not at all.
And so it was this like, it actually has this like overlapping thing in my mind of like, it feels almost intertwined with Church in like a passing the baton kind of way.
You said something the other day at our breakfast that was so beautiful. I can't remember how you said it, but you were like, it's like volume 2.
Oh, yeah, it feels like a response or something.
Yeah.
How did I say it? I can't
it
remember.
Was like these moments of corporate worship.
Oh yeah.
And then how like this is tools for like your church life, and then here now tools for your private life, like your communion with the Lord, which was like beautiful, Bede.
I love that. Yeah, it feels like that kind of thing. It feels like a sister album or something. I don't know what it is, but but yeah, I feel like, what's my favorite song right now? I don't know. I do think that it feels like a completion, like working right now on it.
For sure.
Like, oh, like some of these songs are from a while ago and some of them are from essentially yesterday. And so it's fun to like kind of bring all of that together and create a little world. I don't know what my favorite song is. Honestly, it's probably Exist.
For sure.
Because, oh my
That's
gosh.
mine, I think.
It's so
You guys,
good.
there's a song that we wrote. And honestly, I talked about this on my first podcast that I did this year. It was like my solo podcast about passion and this message that
yeah.
Louis spoke, and how it just impacted me in such a way. And we wrote a song about like how everything exists to give you glory, and just the beauty of the part that we get to play in that. There's the second verse is probably one of my favorite things that we've been able to write.
Oh, it's so
And
good.
it was like, deep in the blueprint of how we're designed, we're woven together with worship in mind. Could it have been? It's just been so simple all this time. And it's like, the reality, first of all, the freedom in that sentence of like, this is what I was created for. We get so caught up and like, Lord, what have you called me to do? What have you created me to do? Am I supposed to do interior design? Am I supposed to be an artist? Am I supposed to go into full-time vocational ministry? Am I supposed to do this and do that? And it's like, at the basis of everything, at the basis of who we are, we've been created to worship. So, and even in that talk, it's like, okay, are you going to worship the Lord in this? Are you going to give him glory and all those things? And then do it and go run. And the Lord gives you talents and gifts and those things, and you get to like pour into those, and those line up with that as well. It's like, it's not like, oh, well, I really love making movies, but I need to show people about the Lord, so I need to go into ministry. And it's like, no, you bring the ministry into what you're doing, which I think is so beautiful. Like when people tie those worlds together and just give glory to God in a field where it's like, it's not front facing, and it's like, man, why is this so excellent? It's like, because I did it to the glory of God. Yeah. I didn't do it in my own like vain manner. Anyway, all those things. This whole song has to do with how everything just exists to give him glory. Like mountains standing tall, and like the way that the birds sing, it's all pointing glory back to Jesus. And it's this like beautiful song that I'm so excited. I want to put it out first personally, but we'll see.
We'll see. I love that
Too
song.
soon to tell. There's so many songs on this, like you're saying, that are from years ago or that are so fresh, but it all shares the same sentiment of just the intimacy with the Lord and the friendship of God, like just honest like revelations that I've gotten, and then just this overwhelming. The last song on the album is called I Love My Life With You, and I posted a clip of it last year on my birthday, actually, now that I think about it. But it just came from this moment that I was just sitting down at the piano, and rarely I'll come up with a little piano part that I'm like, I feel like I like this.
This is going to be in the final.
I was like, I'm going to play it just like this to no click. That's me. But I was playing it, and I just had this sense of like, man, I really loved my life with you. Like I wouldn't change anything about it. I was at my friend Jabin's church a couple weeks ago, and he said this thing in his message, and he was like, I've never met anyone who walked with Jesus their whole life and regretted it.
Wow.
He's like, now that I meet like people in their old age, he's like, I've never sat down with someone who regretted walking with the Lord.
That's massive.
And I was like, wow, that actually makes so much sense to me, because now that when you're so close to something, or you're so close in a moment, and you're like, God, what are you doing in this? Like, I don't know. What's the next step? Would you help me? But you do this like worldview zoom out of your relationship with the Lord. And it's like, man, I've loved having you at every single step, even in the darkest times, or in the best times, or in the sadness or the loneliness or whatever it might be, or in the harvest seasons when like you are holding your promise. It's like, I've loved sharing my life with you because you've made everything so much better. And has it actually been that bad if you were always with me? I think like now being married, of like, for some reason, you guys, this last year, the events that we've done have been so fascinating. Like, I get like the privilege of leading worship at a lot of places, and some of them just recently have been really interesting in the way of like, oh, that's not how that's supposed to go. And I'm like, Enoch's coming on them with me, and I'm like, oh, normally it's not like this, like kind of embarrassed. I'm like, oh, normally it's like the details are better put together. I don't know. But it's the idea of him being there just made it better than if he wouldn't have been there. Even like the situation still could have been tough, but it's just having a partner in it. And that's like the the opportunity that we get with the Lord of like through every single situation and in season, like he's just walking in step with us. I think that's why I reference Psalm 139, and I'm literally reading it on a song on this album because I feel like I'm harping on that Psalm so much. It's one of my favorite passages in scripture, and it just has to do with like, there's nowhere we can go where he's not there. And he's always with us. And we have the opportunity. I was reading in Isaiah this morning. It's like, behold, I'm doing a new thing. Like, can you not see it? And it's like, we do have the opportunity to not see it. We have the opportunity to not see that he's still in the room with us. And it's like, that's his omnipresence is always around us, but we can ignore it. We can ignore it just as like, we can bypass it of saying like, man, this is a really tough time. And it's like, yes, it is a tough time, but he also weeps with those who mourn. And he also sits with those who are brokenhearted. And it says he rushes to those. So it's like, oh man, I love my life with you as this revelation to me of like, oh, I always want to acknowledge that you're in the room. Even when things are pretty tough. It's like, man, I would never have traded any of those moments though. Any of like the hard times. It's interesting to me if even those who aren't religious at all, they come to this realization of like, there's this song, I want to say maybe it's like Regina Spektor wrote this song. I was talking about this the other day, and it's called Laughing With, I believe. Do you know this song? No. Oh, it's crazy, you guys. And I'm like, it's not that I'm like suggesting it, but she doesn't believe in the Lord. She's not religious at all, has no tie. But she wrote this song called Laughing With, and it starts off and it's like, nobody laughs at God in a hospital. Nobody laughs at God in a war. Whoa. No one's laughing if you're like you're grieving or you're starving or you're poor. But like in the chorus, she's like, God can be funny. And then she uses like a curse word, like when people like use his name in vain, like, or God can be funny when you're saying a joke. Like God can be funny when he's told he'll give you money if you just say the right word, like all these things. And it's like, but God's not funny in those situations. And I'm like, for someone who doesn't even believe in the Lord to write a song like this, and the revelation of like, when we all get to our, like when push comes to shove, who are you calling on? Like, it's still the Lord. Like in a hospital, when it's like, hey, we're losing him. It's like someone calling the chaplain. Like you're doing, because you're pulling on what you know to be true. And I just find that so fascinating that's like the reality for so many people. And I want to dive into that in this record of like just revealing this like communion with the Lord, and how like when push comes to shove, like it's not just our last call, but it's our first call. I love that. And it's just who we get to talk to and have that open line of communication, and there's really nowhere we can go that's outside of his presence. And communion is a gift. Like his presence is the prize. His presence is the prize of making this record. Yeah. Like just being able to be with him. His presence is the reward. It's not like an amount of streams or an amount of like stories we could hear. Like the prize truly is like we've already won before we've released it. And I think that's such a beautiful perspective that we both get to share of like the fact that we even get to do this. It's crazy. Is like shocking. We talk about that like, this is our lives, that we get to create music, and like obviously like we're so fortunate that it also like pays our bills and things like that. But I'm like, what a life that we get to live in doing that. And just I love being surrounded by people like you, Bede, of like it constantly is pointing back to that perspective, because we could literally be sitting here and be like, oh, that didn't do well enough, or those numbers didn't go well enough, or we should be like, and it's easy to get into that because you can look at that and that's your perspective. And it's really that like keeping around people. And I'm so grateful when you like talk like that. And it's just such an ease of, Enoch, in what universe could you ever put something on a screen and think that I wasn't going to break? Our friend is about to be at the studio, who's about like to record a song with us today, and he like put it up that he's about to be here, and I'm like, for a breath, but you have not stopped. I know. I've been on such a tangent the whole time. I've been thinking. I'm like, I need to let Bede talk. No, it's incredible. Thanks for saying that it's good, but. Well, if he gets here, you can go greet him. But anything you want to say, Bede, I'm like, taking a breath.
So good. What am I saying?
Yeah, what? I mean, it's just.
Oh my gosh, I feel like it's just the greatest thing in the world that we get to do this. it's
Beautiful.
it's just wild. I like it as a kid. I never could have imagined. Like I always think about me. People are like, "What would you tell your younger self?" And I'm like, if I told them, they just wouldn't believe me. Like I legitimately, if you had told 15-year-old Bede like, "Oh, you'll live in Franklin, Tennessee. You'll have this space, and this is in 15 years or 18 years, however old I am, 33." And so like, and this will be this will be your whole life. It's all you'll do. I legitimately just wouldn't believe you.
Wow.
I just didn't know it was possible. So I think there's something just so, and obviously it was somewhere in me. Like I wanted to write songs and I wanted to do these things, but God gave me more than just than the want of my heart or the initial thing that I asked him for. He actually gave me the desire, like beneath the thing that I knew that I was like, oh, that could be cool to do or whatever. He gave me like far more than what I could have even hoped for at the time. And so it's so magical.
Wow, that's beautiful, Bede. I know, like, he gave me more than, yeah, that's stunning. I'm thinking of, like, how did you get started in songwriting?
Yeah.
Did you start, like, you started on drums, right?
Yeah, I grew up playing drums in church. And then Young and Free started. Mm-hmm. And that's honestly the first song I, like, properly ever finished with a friend of mine, with Alex Pappas, was one of the songs on that first Young and Free thing.
It's the End of Days.
End of Days.
It's like, Pete, first of all, the fact that someone can be like, yeah, that's the first song I wrote.
Okay, but I'd written songs like for girls before.
Please.
but I had not like, yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, a songwriter's a songwriter. I feel like if you're writing songs, like, you just process your life through music. I say that all the time. I'm like, if that's how you, like, process life, you're going to write songs about
fully
what you're going through, what your season looks like, and everything is through the lens of the Lord because you love the Lord. But they're not always, like, head on directly. When did you start producing?
Honestly, in the last, like, few years. I think when I first moved to Nashville here, I made demos. Yeah. But it was like, I made demos the way I thought, like, a producer. There was a producer in Australia who liked demos a specific way, and I made the demos, when I moved here even, the way I thought that I knew he liked them. And I had somebody one day just say, like, hey, you can do more in your demos. And I was like, and this is probably 2019 or something. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, the producer will do that. And they're like, well, what if they ask you to produce it? And it just, like, ceiling shattered. And I was just like, what?
Wow, B.
And so from there, it was like, oh my gosh, this is like, this isn't even, it felt like just such a far-fetched thought. And so for me, it was like, from then I was like, now I have this, like, in my mind, it's still at that point, like, an unachievable goal of, like, that could be, like, imagine if that was my life.
And a few short years later, you're everybody's favorite.
Thank you. No, it's so wild. And I think there's something so valuable, at least for me, in having been, like, essentially exclusively writing first. Mm-hmm. So for me, all production, all of the things are just to serve the song. Yeah. And so if it doesn't serve the song, it can be the coolest thing in the world, but it doesn't go in the song. Totally. If it doesn't serve the song. So I think, I don't know, for me that was always, sounded like a small earthquake.
I know. Honestly, the quarry. Bede Studios on a quarry?
It's not on a quarry. It's just in
Bede
Franklin,
Studios
which is
in the middle of a quarry.
Yeah. That'd be so cool, though.
That'd be so scary, Bede. The foundation would break.
That's true. There's a quarry down the road, and every day at 4 p.m., essentially on the dot, there's a small earthquake.
Yeah, which is honestly always as frightening.
Literally every day.
Every day, it's just as frightening. Yeah. Wow. Well, Bede, I'm so excited to make this project.
I'm so excited
to keep working with you. We'll have Bede on the podcast many more times as we, like, navigate through stuff, and we'll talk, like, heart behind certain songs, but just kind of wanted to give, like, an elevator version of, like, where we're at. And I keep using that term, like, my elevator pitch. It's like, what is it's my investor sitting on the other side of this camera. It's like, what's going on? But Bede, you're such a favorite of, like, all of us and our friend group. You're just such a treasure to all of us because you're so collaborative too. Like, something I love about, like, you help make all of us better, but you don't want to like, in the sense of like, oh, it's all me. It's all me. Like you literally empower each of us to be the best version of ourselves. And that's why like our records, and maybe we'll do a whole podcast on that later. Cause I think that that's so stunning what you're doing and your heart behind that, of like being able to empower artists and just for the resources that they have, and having everybody be bought in on it is so beautiful. Anyway, we'll talk about that another time.
Thank you.
But at the end of every podcast, Bede, we do what's your golden nugget? And it's like a nugget of wisdom. So maybe even like a nugget of wisdom to like younger Bede, or to like little beads out there.
Little beads, I don't like.
To young beads.
I don't know. I feel like for me, the thing I feel like I would tell the smaller me is to just to keep going. I feel like you can get caught up in being like, oh, I want my life to look like that, or that would be such a dream, or whatever it is. I feel like there's such a power in like doing, like being diligent with what God has put in your hands.
Yeah.
And trying to do that thing the best that you can. And I think God blesses that. And I know that God blesses that. Yeah. And I feel like that's what I would tell younger me. Is that my golden nugget? I don't know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful golden nugget.
Great. Cool.
Well, guys, we love you so much. We're going to keep going on the process of this record, and we'll bring you through all the things. Also, if you didn't know, I started long form vlogging again. Yeah, I know. It's like, come on, what are we talking about? So we could document the process of everything. So you can keep up with us on that too. We hope that for 1 hour you felt encouraged, you felt pushed forward, challenged, and that you just got to laugh with some of your best friends. Don't forget to follow us and subscribe. I've never said that, but Enoch asks me to. Really cute. Yeah, follow us wherever, subscribe on this page. We love you guys so much. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.